Part 102. Newspapers hold down the aristocratic families who want to rebel. In the holy city of the Holy Dynasty, the aristocratic families who did not know that Tongcheng had a tendency to win began to prepare for their future. Especially the Luo family. The food and grass that had been hoarded for many years were shipped out of the holy city in batches to support the Wangyu dynasty. Yes, you read that right, support the Wangyu dynasty. The head of the Luo family, Luo Yunxiao, also summoned the heads of the aristocratic families who were dissatisfied with Emperor Shengde's many new policies to gather in the mansion. Saying it was a small gathering was actually planning how to rebel. Ladies and gentlemen, everyone is a person who knows the bottom line. Luo will not say those polite words. And I will say it bluntly. The Luo family's patriarch sat in the first place, and his sharp eyes looked at the dozen or so patriarchs present, said meaningfully, "You have been in charge of your own family for many years, do you want to see your family fall?" These words directly hit the hearts of all the family leaders present. Of course, they don't want to see the wealth and personal connections that their family has accumulated so much to lose, especially the recent imperial examination system, which has caused their family's conflicts to continue, and they almost fell apart because of the personal grievances in the family. Thinking that all this was caused by Zheng Yi, he gritted his teeth angrily, but he couldn't attack. Of course I don't want to. Who wants to lose their own family? Someone said. That's right. The most hateful thing is to let the pariahs become officials in scientific examinations, which is simply a great shame for our nobles. Yeah. To actually let that unworthy concubine become an official, what makes the heirs feel? More and more people began to speak out, expressing their dissatisfaction with the new policy. Seeing that they were all dissatisfied with the new policy, Luo Yunxiao was extremely satisfied. It seemed that the new policy had already made these patriarchs resentful. He suddenly asked in a deep voice, "Since we are so dissatisfied with Emperor Shengde's rule, why don't we take the opportunity to overthrow the Holy Dynasty?" The room that had been noisy just now was suddenly so quiet that you could hear a needle drop. And they all looked at Luo Yunxiao on the first seat in astonishment. To rebel, they don't seem to dare. However, thinking of the recent new policies that are not good for oneself. I can't wait to turn against the Holy Dynasty and establish itself as the emperor. Everyone fell into a strange silence, all silent, not wanting to be the first bird. Seeing the silence of the crowd, Luo Yunxiao opened his mouth and said, "Now the Wangyu dynasty is attacking our country. With the strength of the Wangyu dynasty, our country will not be able to support it for a long time and it will be destroyed. Besides, the original nomadic dynasty and Jinghe kingdom's rebellion. As a result of the fall of Tianhe Gate, the army led by General Rong had to retreat to Tongcheng. Luo believed that Tongcheng would be lost in a few days. If you wait for the army of the Wangyu dynasty to enter the holy city. If you don't want to retreat quickly, do you think the army of the Wangyu dynasty will save your lives?" His rhetorical question was as cold as the winter in 12th lunar month, causing a chill in the hearts of all the patriarchs present. Yes, if the Wangyu dynasty attacked, the first group of unfortunate people would be these aristocratic families. Because no new emperor will tolerate the powerful princes and ministers of the previous country. When the Holy Dynasty unified the nomadic dynasty and the Jinghe kingdom, those powerful families were not given important tasks, only those who had real talents and no background were entrusted with important tasks. If the Wangyu dynasty captured the Holy Dynasty, the Wangyu dynasty, which was afraid of their strength, would definitely find various reasons to weaken their strength. Seeing everyone's worried expressions, Luo Yunxiao flashed a calculation in his eyes, and he said sternly, "Since the Holy Dynasty will lose sooner or later, Why didn't we make plans earlier? Plans? What plans? Someone asked. Everyone turned their attention to Luo Yunxiao, as if to ask again, yes, what's the plan? When the Holy Dynasty was in chaos, we took the opportunity to rebel and become kings. Luo Yunxiao's voice was low and serious, saying what everyone was afraid and looking forward to. As the head of the big family, their desire for power is no lower than anyone else's, and they all want to sit in the supreme position and enjoy the worship of the world. Moreover, because of the attack of the Wangyu dynasty, the soldiers of the former nomadic dynasty and the Jinghe kingdom in the Holy Dynasty began to move about, wanting to rebel. If they rebelled while the Holy Dynasty was at its most chaotic, the odds of winning should be great. One by one, they bowed their heads and pondered, thinking whether to rebel or not. Luo Yunxiao, who was in the first seat, sneered in his heart when he saw the silence of everyone. These fools, rebelling at this time, is purely courting death. Because whether it was the Holy Dynasty or the Wangyu dynasty, they didn't need this kind of aristocratic family that wanted peace and well-being in the country, and rebelled when the country was in trouble. Therefore, whether the Holy Dynasty wins or the Wangyu dynasty wins, these rebellious families will be mercilessly exterminated. I'm going out. My Lin family is willing to create a new country with the Luo family against this Holy Dynasty. The person who spoke was the head of the Lin family. He had spent the whole day in regret because he had dismissed himself from office. Opportunities can be re-official, naturally it is to fight. Seeing that someone dared to rebel, other hesitant patriarchs also made up their minds and echoed, my Chen family is also willing. My Lu family is also willing. More and more patriarchs stood up and expressed their stance. Until the last patriarch finished speaking, everyone sat back to their original positions and discussed how to overthrow the Jun dynasty. Jun Yi in the palace can be described as worrying more and more recently. Although he knows that Mo Yan and the others have the secret weapon of bombs to resist the invasion of the Wangyu dynasty, he is worried that the soldiers of the former nomadic dynasty and the Jinghe kingdom do not know Mo Yan. They will win, they will definitely have a different heart, and they will turn against the water. The soldiers of the former nomadic dynasty and the Jinghe kingdom in Tianhe Gate before are the best examples. Although he has separated the soldiers of the original nomadic dynasty and the Jinghe kingdom into their army, he can't stop them from secretly contacting them. Your Majesty, it's time for you to play the cards. Yi Yang could only be distracted when he saw that Jun Yi was playing cards, so he had no choice but to remind him aloud. Jun Yi was pulled back to his mind by Yi Yang's voice. He glanced at the cards in his hand. He clearly had a good hand, but he played a wrong card, and he was stunned to play a good hand. He threw a 10, and was instantly crushed to death by Yi Yang with a single 2. Then he looked at the king holdings of a landlord in his hand, then looked at the other single cards, shook his head, and saw that Yi Yang still had a lot of cards in his hand. He motioned Yi Yang to take another step. Yi Yang was not polite at all. He threw away the cards in his hand and jumped up happily. Oh yeah, I can go out of the palace to play again. Jun Yi looked down at Yi Yang's finished 34,567 5 cards, laughing dumbly. If he just threw the king to show boldly, he would have won. It seems that he is not decisive enough, and he is afraid of wolves and tigers. How can this be done? Since the soldiers of the original nomadic dynasty and the Jinghe kingdom are going to rebel, they will all be killed without amnesty. His eyes became sharp, and he decided to send the imperial decree to the various armies later. If anyone dared to rebel, he would be arrested and beheaded in public, killing chickens and monkeys. The happy Yi Yang didn't have time to figure out where to go out of the palace next time. Seeing Jun Yi's sharp eyes, a trace of fear rose in his heart. He asked weakly, "Your Majesty, what's the matter?" Zheng Yi covered the sharpness in his eyes. With an expression on his face, he turned to look at Yi Yang tenderly and said with a smile, "Is it all right?" Yi Yang sat opposite Zheng Yi, holding his head in his hands, and asked with a puzzled look, "Your Majesty, the bomb has now been delivered to Tongcheng. With the power of the bomb, it is absolutely easy to stop the army of the Wangyu dynasty. I don't know what you are worried about, Your Majesty." Zheng Yi did not hide Yi Yang's question, but told the truth. Although we know that the Wangyu dynasty is it is difficult to capture Tongcheng, but other people don't know. Especially the soldiers of the original nomadic dynasty and Jinghe kingdom, they will definitely take the opportunity to rebel. Yi Yang faced this problem at this time. Because the communication of this dynasty was backward, many important information would not be known until 10 days and a half month, especially the battle in Tongcheng. Because it was located on the border and far from the holy city, it would take 7 days even for flying pigeons to pass the book, when they received the news from Tongcheng. It was all news from 7 days ago. Who knows how many battles Tongcheng has experienced in these 7 days? It took them so long to receive the news, not to mention other cities. It must be another 7 or 8 days when the soldiers in other cities receive the news. During these 7 or 8 days, I don't know how many people are frightened and afraid that Tongcheng will fall. Especially the soldiers of the original nomadic dynasty and Jinghe kingdom. It is difficult to guarantee that they will not take the opportunity to turn against the tide and give the Holy Dynasty a blow. To solve this problem now, it is necessary to broadcast the latest news of Tongcheng in real time, to dispel those who are deeply afraid that the Holy Dynasty will be defeated and take the opportunity to rebel. But in this era of no internet and no TV, wanting to broadcast the Tongcheng battle in real time is nothing short of a fantasy. But well, Yi Yang thought of one thing. Although this thing can't broadcast the battle situation in Tongcheng in real time, it can let the people know the battle situation in Tongcheng. That's right, it's a newspaper. A newspaper is published every day, not only to announce the battle situation in Tongcheng every day, but also to publish the new policies promulgated by the state at all times, so that the people can also pay attention to the major events in the world. After he informed Zheng Yi of his thoughts, Zheng Yi agreed with Yi Yang's proposal very much. The next morning, he added a new news department, and then asked the Ministry of Industry to cooperate with the production of larger papers and began to arrange the news column. The first news layout was made by Yi Yang himself. Not only did he publish the news sent from Tongcheng 7 days ago, but he also published a special edition of the news. From now on, whether it is to take the imperial examination or join the army, there must be a political review. If someone in the 3 generations of the direct line is found to have betrayed the country, they will be disqualified from preparing for the exam, and they will not be able to become an official in this life. A few days later, there were suddenly many half-old children selling newspapers in the holy city. They shouted loudly while waving the newspapers in their hands, "Sell the newspapers, sell the newspapers. You can know the state affairs immediately for a penny. If you don't suffer, you can't be fooled, come and buy it." Everyone was aroused by this novel slogan and stopped to watch. "Hey, little baby, what did you write in this newspaper?" Someone asked jokingly. "If you want to know, just buy one, and make sure you won't suffer or be fooled." The child replied with a smile. "Okay. I want to see what's written on it." The person who spoke was already rich, and a penny was not worth mentioning in his eyes. He took a penny out of his arms and threw it to the child. The little boy hurriedly caught the pennies that flew over, and took a look at it repeatedly in his hand. After confirming that it was real money, He quickly took out a newspaper from a stack of newspapers and handed it to the man who paid the money respectfully. The man took the newspaper and was about to read it, when he found that everyone around him stretched their necks to read what was written in the newspaper. In the heart of why I paid for you to read, the man who paid the money looked impatient. He shouted to the people around him, "Go, go, I haven't watched it yet." "What are you looking at?" "Stingy," someone retorted unwillingly. "I'm stingy? If you're generous, you can buy one too," the man said excitedly. "It's like I can't afford it." The man who retorted was so agitated that he didn't get angry. He took out a penny from his arms and handed it to the little boy, and said in an unhappy tone, "Little baby, give it to me a newspaper." Seeing that another newspaper was sold, the little baby responded cheerfully, then took the money and took a closer look. After confirming that it was real money, he quickly put the money in his chest. He took a newspaper and handed it to the man respectfully. The man took the newspaper, glanced provocatively at the man who bought the newspaper first, then unfolded the newspaper and read aloud. Breeze Cool Newspaper Office was established on October 11th of the Yongnian calendar. Thank you for your support, and if you want to advertise in the future, please move Qingfengxuan in Bunan Street. The man read it for a while, and found that it was all nonsense. He muttered that he had bought a loss. And just about to crumple the newspaper and throw it away, he accidentally caught a glimpse of the next page, and his eyes instantly widened. "Impossible, impossible, fake," the man murmured with a ghostly expression. The crowd of onlookers who had listened to a bunch of nonsense turned around and were about to leave. But when they saw the man showing a ghostly expression, they instantly aroused curiosity and asked the man with urgent eyes. But the man, who was in a state of shock, didn't come back to his senses for a long time, so anxious that the people around him could not wait to rush up to grab the newspaper in the man's hands. The man who bought the newspaper first was so angry that he turned around and wanted to leave, but when he saw the man staring at the newspaper, his curiosity was aroused, and he hurriedly lowered his eyes to look at the newspaper in his hand. However, when he saw the most shocking news in this edition of the newspaper, he was so frightened that he shouted, "It's over!" He ran to his house like a madman. Everyone looked at the man, who suddenly ran away with a frightened face. They were very scared. They didn't know what was written in the newspaper. Why were the people who read it either shocked or scared? Curious about what was written in the newspaper, they took out a penny and bought the newspaper from the little boy. When the little boy saw so many people buying his own newspaper, he thought that he could get an extra penny in commission for selling 50 copies of the newspaper. He was so happy that his little face turned into a flower, and he was soft on receiving the money. The people who bought the newspaper started to read it one after another. After they read the first piece of content that was innocuous and full of nonsense, they scolded their mothers in their hearts, causing them to spend a penny in vain. However, after they read the news below, they were shocked and froze in place, unable to believe it was true. "It's impossible. How could our dynasty defeat the Wangyu dynasty with an army of 300,000 troops? How many thousands of troops?" Some people began to doubt whether the news in the newspapers was true. "I don't believe it either," someone agreed. "They can see how powerful the soldiers of the Wangyu dynasty are. With such a powerful army, how could their dynasty have defeated more than 600,000 troops with an army of 300,000? It's so fake, it's unbelievable." Originally, the second template news Yi Yang was going to publish the first good news that General Mo sent back. But when he was designing the template for the newspaper, the second good news came right after. Mo Yan and the others resisted the second wave of attacks from the Wangyu dynasty. Yi Yang finished writing the second good news, and just when he instructed the people in the newspaper to print according to what he wrote, the third piece of good news came back. After they saw the third good news, both he and Junyi were stunned. Yi Yang and Junyi never imagined that Mo Yan and Rong Bolan were so courageous that they led an army of 300,000 to attack the remaining 500,000 Wangyu Dynasty army in the middle of the night. As soon as they went up, they used bombs to bomb the Wangyu Dynasty's food and grass. The food and grass were immediately ignited, and the fire was soaring into the sky. Because of the strong wind that night, the fire was instantly blown to the camp, and the temporary camp of the Wangyu dynasty was ignited. Immediately, the bright fire lit up the night like day. All the tents were set on fire, and more than 200,000 horses were startled, neighing and fleeing. The scene was chaotic, and countless soldiers of the Wangyu dynasty died under their horses. The neighing of the horses and the screams of the people mixed together, like a purgatory on earth, and even the soldiers of the Holy Dynasty were frightened by the screams on the opposite side. The soldiers of the Wangyu Dynasty were frightened by this asura scene. They lost their fighting spirit and fled in all directions. Those with bad luck ran to the Holy Dynasty army. Those who shot and killed were shot, and those who were captured. Under the escort of many soldiers, General Shah fled the blazing camp and ran towards the Wangyu dynasty with an army of tens of thousands. This raid was a complete victory. Therefore, when the people of the Holy City learned that their Holy Dynasty defeated the army of the Wangyu dynasty, it was too dreamy, and everything was so unreal. The aristocratic families who had thought of rebelling before learned that Mo Yan had beaten the soldiers of the Wangyu dynasty back to the Wangyu dynasty. And they were so frightened that they quickly contacted several surrounding aristocratic families who wanted to rebel. In this situation now, who would dare to rebel? Whoever would go is to find death, and even Luo Yunxiao of the Luo family fell into silence. Master, what should I do now? Luo Wu looked worried. Now that the soldiers of the Wangyu dynasty were beaten back by the Holy Dynasty, it would be impossible for the Wangyu dynasty to attack the Holy Dynasty. Especially when the Holy Dynasty stabilized the soldiers of the original nomadic dynasty in the Jinghe kingdom, then when the Holy Dynasty became stronger. The Wangyu dynasty could not escape the end of being annexed. If the Wangyu dynasty was annexed, what would they do? Luo Wu couldn't help but worry about their situation. Luo Yunxiao looked gloomy and said solemnly, "Let's wait and see. If the Wangyu dynasty is really defeated, we will move our family to the Ri Yao dynasty. Now they don't dare to stay in the Holy Dynasty anymore. After all, they previously supported the Wangyu dynasty with a high profile. The Wangyu dynasty is something that many people have seen. Even if Junyi doesn't trouble them, other people in the Holy City will trouble them." "Yes, my lord." Luo Wu's expression was still worried, and he wanted to say, if the Wangyu dynasty is really defeated, the Ri Yao dynasty will not escape the end of being annexed. So, no matter where they fled, they couldn't escape the claws of the Holy Dynasty. But looking at Luo Yunxiao, who was in good spirits and aged by more than 10 years due to recent troubles, his face was covered with wrinkles. He sighed softly, turned around and left, preparing for the big event of family migration. He would not believe that the Wangyu dynasty would dare to kill the Holy Dynasty again. The soldiers of the original nomadic dynasty and the Jinghe kingdom in the Holy Dynasty originally wanted to revolt when the Holy Dynasty was beaten by the Wangyu dynasty, and attacked the Holy City in one fell swoop to destroy the current Holy King and establish himself as the emperor. However, when they saw in the newspapers that the army of more than 600,000 people from the Wangyu dynasty was beaten by the Holy Dynasty's army of 300,000 people and lost their armor, they all thought that it was a lie deliberately fabricated by today's sage for fear of their rebellion. But they are also afraid of what if it is true. The troops, who were about to move, chose to wait and see. They had to determine whether this matter was true or not. So they hurriedly sent people to Tongcheng to check the facts and make sure that what was written in the newspaper was true. Many people were sent out to find out the truth, including soldiers from the original nomadic dynasty and the Jinghe kingdom, as well as cronies of aristocratic families who wanted to rebel. When they traveled long distances to Tongcheng, they saw that Tongcheng was peaceful, and the people lived and worked in peace and contentment. Not as devastated as they imagined. Especially when they heard that the people of Tongcheng were talking with high spirits about General Mo leading an army of 300,000 to seize Wanja Gate of the Wangyu dynasty. The whole person stayed in place. What kind of rebellion is this? The 300,000-strong army has captured Wanja Gate of the Wangyu dynasty. If Mo Yan's class teacher returns to the dynasty, those who dare to rebel will definitely be beaten by Mo Yan. When they heard the news, they hurried to the capital, and they wanted to tell their masters about this important event as soon as possible. It was almost a month after they traveled back to the holy city. They were just about to report the news they had heard, but unexpectedly learned that Mo Yan and the others had already invaded the capital of the Wangyu dynasty.